Well, I think what it shows is just how hard the former coalition government had to try to get positive figures for this project. When they first assessed it back in March 2013, the best they could come up with using a sort of narrow methodology for benefit cost analysis was a benefit cost ratio of 0.45. What that means is that the project returned just 45 cents for every $1 invested. In other words, it was well into negative territory. They sort of then looked into it a bit more and they included what they called wider economic benefits in their analysis. And that was quite interesting. One of their sort of areas of benefit was they said everyone was going to have more time to spend at work and therefore there'd be more tax revenue flowing in, so that'd boost the figures. They also relied on a controversial branch of economics known as agglomeration economics, which is to do with businesses sort of clustering, and there's efficiencies associated with businesses clustering together, so that was another area. And they managed to get it up to about 84 cents doing it that way. In other words, it was still a loss-making project. So then they went back to the drawing boards completely, came up with another business case where they included a whole lot of other projects in the analysis, including widening the Tullamarine Freeway, widening Eastlink, that sort of thing, public transport improvements. Doing that and factoring in all these wider economic benefits, they finally managed to get the benefit cost ratio just into positive territory. So they came up with a rate of 1.4. In other words, it returns $1.40 for every dollar invested. I think if you look at the business case, it's not hard to see why it was so difficult to make the project stack up. Just construction costs were very, very high, about $1.2 billion for every 1 kilometre of road built. Compare that to CityLink, it was about $200 million, Eastlink about $100 million, so dramatically higher costs. Fairly low traffic projections. They were predicting, I think, about 120,000 vehicles on a typical weekday, which isn't particularly good, and that meant toll revenue wasn't that high ever. So it was sort of always hard to get the economics of this project looking good. A much cheaper option would have been to build it at grade, but that means just sort of as on the surface as a freeway. That would have produced a benefit cost ratio somewhere above 4. In other words, it would have stacked up, but it would have also ruined Melbourne, basically. So they couldn't do that. They also examined the idea of building a viaduct, which means a sort of raised Los Angeles-style freeway. And that only produced a marginally better benefit cost ratio, and it would have sort of had huge visual impacts and that sort of thing. So they decided not to go down that track. So in the end, instead of submitting the business case to Infrastructure Australia, they decided to submit updated strategic material, so it's sort of selective material, to the independent umpire. They felt that would allow them to justify the road and call on the federal government to make a contribution as well.